Welcome, everyone. Welcome back to the Politics of Survival. I'm your host, Tara Reade, and I have a great show ahead for you. I have an actor that I have followed for a while, and we've chatted a bit and decided to have him come on the show and talk a little bit about his work and politics and acting and all the fun stories he has to tell. And that's going to be Scott James Kyle. He's a Scottish actor, and you might know it from his brogue. But he's best known for his roles in Ross for Outlander, Clancy and the Angel's Share, and many others, as well as a theater production that he's in right now, and he'll tell us more about that. Singin, I'm Not a Billy, He's a Tim, and he'll explain the title, he'll explain the history and all about that in just a moment. And I want to welcome you all back. As you know, I'm recording from Moscow, Russia. I am, yes, still in political asylum and still in exile from America. And as I said, when I came here to Moscow on vacation, I was touring around going to do my book and the translation. I only packed for a week, should have packed better, but now I'm here and I've been able to acclimate. So without further ado, we'll talk about my situation, and we'll talk about Scott and his acting and his many stories he has from the road. And welcome to the show, Scott. Thank you for having me on.
Hello, Tara. Thank you very much for the invitation, and what a wonderful introduction. Well done you for getting the title of the show.
Well, thanks. Yeah, and you are in right now. Are you in the UK or are you in Scotland as we speak?
Yeah, I'm in Scotland, which is part of the UK, but yeah, I'm in Scotland.
And I guess I think of it, I've been talking to George Galloway, I guess, like.
Yes, yeah, and I speak to a lot of Scottish folk. A lot of Scottish folk wish it wasn't part of the UK and they were independent. So yes, so just.
Right. But we can get into that a bit. So you're a Scottish actor, but you've like been all over the place doing some of your jobs. You're quite a professional in film, television, and theater. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your most recent production, and then maybe it'd be fun to chat about some other stories from your other venues. So
okay, well, the production I'm working on just now is called Singin, I'm Not a Billy, He's a Tim. The title of the show comes from a football song, and it's a play on the words in the football song. So it all becomes clear as you go through the journey of the theatre show. So to tell you a wee bit about the theatre show. So the premise for the show is, on the day of the big football match, or soccer match to any Americans watching, on the day of the big football match, a true story happened. All the males and the men of a local community were arrested on the morning of the football for non-payment of fines. Right? Wow. This actually happened, it's a true story. And what happened that day is all the friends and family rallied round to raise the money to pay the fine, so that the two guys, so that all the men could get out of prison to go and see the football. Right, so there was a real inspiration behind. Like, they know that all the men want to go and see the big football match in Scotland, so they raised the money. So that was Des Dillon, the author of the play. He shared that story, and he said that was where he got the inspiration for the story. So what the story happens is, it's the day of the big match, in Scotland, and the teams are Rangers, who are the Billy Boys, and the blue team, and there's Celtic, who are the Tims, and they're the green and white team. So on the day of the match, Billy, who's a Rangers fan, and Tim, who's a Celtic fan, are both arrested on different sides of the city for non-payment of fines, and they find themselves in the same prison cell together. So as the day unfolds, it turns out they've got a bet on the game. So the stakes for the football match are very high, because whoever wins the match, their wives will collect the winnings from the Ladbrokes, or the bookies, the bookmakers, and they will pay the fine. So whoever wins gets freedom. They win their freedom on the match.
That's high stakes.
That's the high stakes. So as they unfold, as they persuade the unwitting turnkeys. So the jailer that's locked them up that day, he's got some serious family issues going on. His grandson is only 6 years old and he's in hospital, and he's waiting on the phone calls from the family to give him updates on how the grandson's doing. And Billy and Tim come crashing into his world this day, and they end up in the same prison cell. And they persuade Harry, the turnkey, to let them watch the match through the hatch of the prison cell. So as they're taking turns each watching the match, they also get an insight into Harry's world as he answers the phone and hears about his grandson. And as the play unfolds, some of the kind of nonsense and sectarianism and the bigotry that they feel against each other, these are two men that do not like each other. They start to come together to support the other human being that's in the story that's having a tough time. And that's where the kind of divide starts to be. They start to see there's a bit more to life than football. So that's
it sounds fantastic. And is there going to be a video version of it at all?
We did film it in 2009 when we did it before, and I intend to do it again. The interesting thing about this show, and this kind of fits in probably to your politics, the show is about a Rangers fan, which is predominantly Catholic, and the Celtic fan, which is predominantly so the Rangers fan predominantly Protestant, and the Celtic fan predominantly Catholic. And their problems of the sectarianism between the two divides within the religion. Now, I like to say to people that this could easily be Sunni Shiite. This could easily be a Palestinian and Israeli. It could be Montague and Capulet. The story is universal. It's a universal story. It just so happens in our version, we go through the kind of the lens of the football teams. But in the current world just now, you could easily have this being a Russian and a Ukrainian in a prison cell together, or a Palestinian and Israeli in a prison cell together. And although they're coming at it from very different angles, they have to come together to support another human being. And essentially, it's that humanity is more important than maybe these wee divides and lines on a map that we've drawn. You know, there was no Belgian dinosaurs. You know, it was somebody.
Right. Well, I come from Irish Catholic background on both sides of my family, so I'm very familiar with. In fact, I posted something about when a table is set when you bring your Protestant friend home to your Catholic home. And and there was like this joke about about what that whole thing is like. But yeah, it is a universal theme where there's some tension and really it's needed right now because there is so much violence and tension right now in the world. So you had done this production. This is the second time you're doing this production. Could you explain how you did it the first time and then how it evolved into now doing this?
Okay, well, this is a good chance to plug my book that I'm working on just now. That'll be coming
soon. You're working on a book?
Yeah, so my book is called It's Not What You Start. Yeah, so it's not what you start. I've been working on it for 5 years. I thought I would write it in 6 months. And here we are 5 years later. It's a much bigger project, writing a book, than I even imagined. So, but it's been fun. It's been therapeutic. It's been insightful, and I've really enjoyed it. And now I have a new ending to the book because I'm doing the show again. So the opening chapter of my book is called "It's Not Show Friends, It's Show Business." And that was one of the lessons that I learned from doing the show. So to paint the picture, I graduated from acting college at about the age of 21. And I went out into the big world looking for a play to put on because I'd realised that most actors graduating from education and college don't walk straight into jobs because you've only just learned your trade. So while at college, I set up a theatre company when I was there, and I started producing shows while I was in college using the students that I was working with. And at the weekends, we would take the shows on the road. So when I graduated, I went to a local library to look for a play because it was my first production. And I picked up this play, and it was called Singin, I'm No a Billy, He's a Tim. And I'd never heard of this play. I'd never seen it in the library, which I frequented. So it was one of these moments of, this is the movie. If you're ever making the movie, this is the young lad picks the play up off the shelf in the library. And I opened it up, and I just fell in love with what was written here. I've never shared a prison cell with anybody, thankfully, other than in the stage show. But I did share a bedroom with an older brother. So the tit for tat, and the arguments and the banter in the prison cell the two guys were having, I could relate to my brother and I growing up, and that was a big part of the play that I took my life experience to. So I picked up the play, and we decided to put it on, and we put it on in a few venues in Scotland. And over the course of a 5-year period, it became the biggest show in Scotland. It's classed as Scottish theatre's greatest success story of recent times. And it was done without any financial support from anyone. It was done without any funding from any government organisations or any anti-sectarian organisations, because I don't think we fitted the mould of what they were looking for in a theatre company, because we were touring in a gas van. We were just three young students that put on these tops and started telling this fantastic story. So after 5 years, we had a proper theatre van. We were playing to 3,000 people a night in Glasgow. The play had grossed over £1 million in ticket sales over the 5 years. And as I say, it was the toast of Scottish theatre. In 2010, we went to the Edinburgh Festival, which is the biggest arts festival in the world. And I was crowned the stage best actor, which meant a lot to me because I gave myself the job. So I always had a huge inferiority complex that I'm only doing this because I gave myself the job. So when we went to the Edinburgh Festival with the most talented and the best actors in the world from all over, so to win the crown of the stage best actor that year meant an awful lot to me. But it was my production. I'd been in it for 5 years. We were pretty damn good at it after 5 years, as you would think. Yeah. One of the things we started to do was put my name on the poster. Award-winning actor Scott Kyle on the poster. And then something even more magical than the play happened, Tara. I got an email one day at the house through my theatre company, and it was from a lady called Leanne Phillips. And she said, "Scott, you don't know me. I'm your little sister. My dad left when I was 3, and he went away and he had another family. So he had 3 daughters and a boy. So I had 3 sisters and a brother I'd never met.
Oh,
and
wow.
they only discovered me because they walked past a poster and seen my name. So the play gave me a new family, right? So this plays a huge big impact in my life. From doing the show, I was able to earn enough money that I paid off my mum's mortgage. So she had no more mortgage to pay in her house. I paid off her debt that she owed, her credit cards. And I was ready to set up a new life with my now wife, but at the time, Karen was my girlfriend. Yeah. So I said to my new family, they said, "We don't know how you would feel if you'd be comfortable meeting us. We know it's a big shock." And I said, "I can't wait to meet you. I've always wondered if there was anybody out there." And I said, "I'm doing a theatre show. Will you come to see the play that I'm in? I'm in this theatre show." So they all came along on this night at the SACC in Glasgow. There's 3,000 people coming. That night, the shows were £50,000 of ticket sales. And we've been doing it for 5 years. So we're very good. And I can say that we've got awards to prove it. We're very good at it. So we did the show. We got a standing ovation. And after the show, we take our bows. And then the humbling thing, we have to load the van. So although you're an award-winning actor and you've just had a standing ovation and shouts of encore, you still need to grab the set and put it in the van before you go for a pint, before a drink. So as we're loading the van, the writer of the play, Des Dillon, comes up to me and he says, "What you've done with this play, Scott, is unbelievable." He said, so what I'm about to say to you, it isn't personal, but I'm taking the show off you and I'm going to do it myself. Whoa. So what Des was doing is, as the writer, as a young, naive producer, I didn't get lawyers involved to sign up the performance rights for eternity, because I was just flying by the seat of my pants, having fun, making a theatre show with my friends. And what happened was Des, the writer, was exercising his right to take back his play. So he had the right to do it. It was his play. And on my side of it, I wasn't an experienced enough businessman in the world of show business to actually have got the contract signed that meant that I would have the play forever. So I lost the biggest show in Scotland. And that night, I lost my business. So I was a theatre company with one show, not a smart move. And I lost my show. So essentially, I lost my business. And then that night, I had to go out to a room full of people who had put on a free bar for all my friends and family that had supported me and my new family. And then I had to put on the best acting performance of my life as walking through the door of the theatre bar and pretending everything was okay, when inside my whole world was crumbling to bits. And I was panicking that I'd let everyone down. The future I was hoping to build with my now wife, I'm thinking I had gave all the money to my mum, thinking I had the goose that lays the golden egg and it would lay eggs forever. So it was that's the opening chapter of my book. So I lost the show. Probably, again, if you join the dots looking backwards, a wonderful thing to happen to me, because I went on to do many, many things like Outlander, The Angel's Share. Kajaki is a British war movie where I got to work with the Academy Award-winning producers of The King's Speech. So all that happened as a result of it. So there's no regrets. on how it unfolded. And all that's going to be in the book. And we were planning on ending the book before the lockdown. I got invited to meet the Queen. Now, a wee boy from Glasgow who grew up in the housing estate doesn't normally get invited to the palace, or we've been invited to the BAFTAs, and we've been in Comic-Cons all around the world. It was an incredible, and we were saying, well, how do we end the book? And then the pandemic happened, and all the acting work stopped. And I found myself sitting in the garden after 6 months, scratching my head, going, will the theatres ever open? And will I get to do what I love doing ever again? After 6 months, I said to my wife, I have to go and do something because this is driving me insane. Sitting about the house. I'm not a sitting about the house person. So I looked at jobs. The only jobs going were jobs in the care sector. So during the pandemic, that's the only places that were recruiting and looking for people. So I got a job in the care sector, and it was one of the best roles I've ever had in my life. I was working 2 days a week supporting a young autistic lad. And the 2 days that I spent looking after the young lad changed my life in just ways you can't imagine. It was for 2 years during the pandemic. I spent 2 days, and we would go on day trips. I would take the young lad up to all the theatres I'd ever been to beaches, and we got him on a helicopter, and we got him a jacuzzi out his back. And the young lad, when I first started working with him, he didn't really leave the house. He had a team of older guys, and he would watch DVDs all day. And when I went in, we started walking. We're doing hours and hours of walking, hill walking, climbing. His palate was changing. His diet was improving. He was losing weight. Just phenomenal. And that role inspired my wife Karen and I to become foster carers. So we now foster 2 children of our own. So that's another journey. The other part of that journey is when I was younger, I was in foster care as well for a short period of time. So the full circle of not only is the story going to be about me doing the play, and I get the play back because I'm back touring the show that I lost. Also, my journey in the foster care system has been being, I suppose you call it, a beneficiary of the foster care system. And now as an adult, I'm a foster carer as well. So yeah, all that's going to be in the book.
That's gonna be fantastic. When is the book coming out?
Well, the idea of the book was, I thought I'd write it in 6 months, and it'd be out in a year. It's taken a lot longer, but partly because the story keeps getting better. You know, like the work I did in the care sector, becoming the foster carer, all those stuff was too good not to put in the book. And then when the play came back, I went, right, I'll need to stop this book at some place. I can't keep writing it. Right? And this makes sense to actually, it'll bookend the story. Like I said, the opening chapter is losing it, and by the end of it is getting the play back. So yes, so that's where the book will end, and we're just finishing that off just now. Probably got about 10 chapters to go, and then we'll be ready to publish it. So it's very exciting.
You know, when you were mentioning foster care, I've known several people in my life. In fact, I had a former boyfriend who had grown up in foster care, and in America, it's very rough because foster care is kind of almost like now they feed the foster care kids almost directly into the juvenile, detention system. They end up, going to jail, before they're adults a lot of times. And it's, they're impoverished. And the people sometimes that are foster families, unfortunately, there's not a lot of checks. There's a lot of abuse. There's also, they're getting paid by not much, but they're getting paid by the county or wherever it is they're living. And so their motivation is more money sometimes than it is actually helping. Now, that's changed, ebbed and flowed, but it's very difficult. What's it like in Scotland and where you were in foster care? Is it the same kind of problems or different?
It's very difficult. When I was in foster care, I was away for maybe 9 months to a year from my mum. So obviously at the time, that's the worst thing ever for me as a wee boy. That's the worst thing you could ever do, is take me away from my mum. Yeah. I don't know, even with the benefit of hindsight, after working on my book, speaking to my dad, speaking to my mum, getting everyone's side of things, I'd like to think people are acting in your best interests. Whether they got it right or wrong, I don't know that that's something for me to judge. I don't know. In terms of my experience so far as a foster carer, the background checks and everything were a year long. So they wanted to speak to everyone you've ever employed you. They wanted to chat to anyone who you've ever been in a relationship with, if you've had a dating history. And after that, there's about a year of training as well, where you're going in and you're learning. And it was that's what I'm meaning about the book's been therapeutic. There's a lot of things I was reading about the kids that you may support that I was sitting going, I've got that and I do that. So some of the the food anxieties that, I mean, you'll not meet somebody that eats faster at a restaurant than me, and it's not until you learn a wee bit about food anxiety that's maybe going for longer periods of time without a meal, or not sure where your next meal might come from. So you're eating as much as you can, as quickly as you can. I always like to blame that as my brother was a quick eater, and he would eat his, then start on mine. So I was trying to eat mine before he could get any. So I've had Carl and I have been very blessed. We did all the training. We had a long period of waiting where we didn't have a match, as they call it. So they're trying to find suitable children that need support that would fit into your family unit well. And we had a couple of kind of false starts with two kids that were kind of matched with us, and they were from a Muslim heritage. And so Carl and I were away learning about the mosques. We were learning about halal food, where to get it from, and also speaking to my friend Umar, one of my best mates. I was best man at his wedding. He's a Muslim, so I was asking a bit about what to expect, and Umar was educating me a bit on that. And then we didn't get matched. So the hard thing was they come, the social services come to your house and they interview you, and it's a bit like acting in that sense. Is they don't get back to you and say, we've found a wonderful Muslim family, or we've found a great match for these kids. You just don't hear anything. And that's what happens in acting a lot of the time. You audition and you never hear. You just know after an amount of time you didn't get the part. So in that sense, we had a couple of experiences like that where you're thinking, is it us? Are we? Is it something we're saying or something we're doing? And it's not the case at all. It's just that they found the right placement for the kids. And then we did some respite where maybe other foster carers need a break. So Karen and I would take the kids out for a day out, or they'd stay here for the weekend. And then we got matched with the two amazing kids we've got now, and they've been here for 2.5, nearly 3 years, and they'll be here till they're adults. So nice. It's very, very exciting.
That is really wonderful.
That's been amazing.
Very cool. Mm-hmm. You're such an inspiration, and we've talked offline a bit before. We have a lot in common, as you may know. I was a professional actor and a model when I was younger, and before I was into politics, and then we know how that turned out. But now I'm in exile in Moscow, Russia. But but I studied classical theater, so I studied Shakespeare more specifically, and I loved it very much. But you're right about the auditioning. Okay, you go into a room, and in my case, being female especially, you'll see women. Everybody looks just like me or similar to me, right? And then you do your thing, and then you don't know, and you just wait, and then your agent may or may not call, right, depending on your agent. But tell us, because I know the audience is fascinated to know some of your stories on the road, with your different, you mentioned working with the producers of The King's Speech, working on Outlander. Could you share some stories about your auditioning and getting those parts, and what that was like on set?
Well, I'll start with probably Outlander, because I know that I've got a huge Twitter following of over 500,000, and that's
Outlander,
that's what they want to hear a wee bit about. So but I can share other stories as well. But yeah, my audition for Outlander and my introduction to it was probably the way I wouldn't change it. It was very, very good. So I got an audition one day to go down to London for a part in a TV show which I'd never heard of. I don't even know if they announced that it was Outlander at the time. Just sometimes the project isn't named what it's going to be. It's just an anonymous one or a false name. So I remember going down for the part of Angus, and it was a big, giant, tall, 6 foot, hairy Highlander. Right now, my wee baby face, I couldn't grow a beard if you gave me £1 million. It just doesn't grow. Right, I got a wee goatee, but not a full beard. So I read the script and I thought, why are they seeing me? I'm not 6'4". I'm not a big giant. I'm not a hairy Highlander. But I went down and I learned the script and I auditioned for the part. And something that I've learned over the years, so I didn't get the part, as I thought I wouldn't. But then I watched season 1 of Outlander, and I seen who did get the part. And the actor was an actor called Stephen Waters, who I worked with on the show. Now, Stephen is not 6'4".
No,
Stephen is very, very small.
I can't tell on screen, but
he's very, very small, and he did have the beard and stuff like that, and he was outstanding as Angus. So what I learned from that is that Stephen must have approached it in a different way to I did. I went in and thought, why are they wasting their time and wasting my time? I'm not right for this part. Stephen must have went in and went, I'm going to make them change their mind of what Angus is. So I learned that from working with Stephen. And obviously, the nice thing was I got to chat to him when I got the role. But I'll tell you about. So that was my first audition in London, and I went down and didn't get the part. And then it was a few months later, I got an audition for the part of Ross. And I did all my homework. I do storyboarding and stuff when I'm going in for things. So I looking, you're talking about politics. I was looking at the politics of the fireside because all the characters were around the fireside. And I'm going, well, if that's the war chief and that's his men and they're trying to bully us, but we're only craftsmen, we're farmers and blacksmiths, we're not fighters. Well, we wouldn't behave a certain way because they would just kill you back them days, you know, kind of. So I had all these politics in my head for the audition. And I went in. I mean, if you're talking, maybe it was a five-line audition, and I'd a storyboard with me and all that stuff. And I said to Anna, who was filming it, I said, Anna, I've got these questions to ask about it. I'm just wondering about this politics. I'm worried about this line, and I'm thinking this. And she said, Scott, I just push record on the camera. You know, I'm kind of working with the casting director, so I don't know anything. I was like, okay, right. So I did the audition, and long story short, I got the part of Ross. So it was very, very exciting. Getting the script through, you know, kind of keeping this huge secret. And the nice thing was, when I'd auditioned for the part, I remember sitting watching Outlander with my wife, and I was saying to her, imagine I walked into the screen, how amazing would this be? You know, you're watching a show thinking, I've auditioned for this. Imagine I end up in this show. That's incredible. And there I was. I got the role, and I walked in and I did loads of amazing things on Outlander. But my first day, so by this time in my career, I'd done lots of theatre. I'd made 2 movies. I'd done some TV in Scotland, but by far the biggest television and the biggest project on budget alone was Outlander. Huge, huge. I mean, this was Hollywood coming to Scotland to make a big, giant TV show. So my first day on set, thankfully, I didn't have one line to say. It was a non-speaking, it was a physical performance. So it was my character was getting a public lashing for letting the war chief into the camp. Right, so my job was to stand guard and not let anyone in, and I let in Graham McTavish's character, who's the war chief in the show. And yeah, when I justified that to myself, I thought if my character had said no to Graham McTavish's character at the gates, he would have murdered me and walked past me. So you'd be as well letting him in. So I let him into the camp, and he's not a threat to anyone, so he comes in. But the rule was, and we were told, nobody gets in, and I let him in. So I'm getting a public lashing in front of everyone. So the scene's all set. There's about 400 kind of supporting actors all there. All the lead cast are there as well. You know, Sam Hewn and stuff like that are all there. And all it is, I have to walk out, take my top off, put my hands across a kind of a horse and cart, and they give me a public lashing in front of the whole crowd. So I'm going, great. My mouth's dry, but I don't need to speak. I'm nervous, but I've not got a lot to do, so that's fine. So I go into the scene, take off my top, put my hands on the cart, take my public lashing. They use a foam whip, but Duncan Lacroix caught me a few times with it, and it does actually sting a bit. So there's a wee bit of, that was a surprise. So that was my opening scene, and I thought, brilliant, job done, relaxed. I didn't mess it up. I didn't have any lines to mess up, so that was a good day. About 3 or 4 hours later, the light changes. It's getting dark in Scotland very early, and we're doing the same scene, but it's about a week later, and it's Sam Hewn's character's turn. He nominates himself for a public lashing because he put the camp at risk. Okay, so the exact same scene, but all the 300 supporting actors are all moved around, change hats, so it looks like a different day of the week. So I'm thinking, this is good. I get to watch my scene. Someone else doing the same as me. This will be quite good. So I'm standing there, quite the thing, watching the camera lights, thinking, wow, this is all going to be great when mine's is on the TV. Sam Hewn takes his top off, and every female in the vicinity goes, right, because he's very muscular, and he's spent a lot of time in the gym, a lot more time in the gym than I have, and I'm sitting thinking, wait a minute, he didn't do that when I took my top off. Right? There wasn't a gasp of awe when I took my top off. So jokingly, I said to Sam, I'm going to have to do that again because I need to cut all that because they didn't do it in my scene. But then after that, you ease yourself in. You got to know the cast and crew, and then you're getting bigger parts and more to do in it. And it was one of the best acting and performances in terms of experiences in my life. Absolutely loved it. So yes, the joys of
sounds
audition.
like it. I mean, it seems like there's a high quality. Also, what I really like is because I am a writer. I just finished a book. I have another one coming, but I like the way they honor the writer and made her a runner. So she has so much say about the interpretation of her book. And and knowing how Outlander fans are, I guess that's important, right?
Yeah, and we call Diana Gabaldon, the author, we call her Mother Outlander. She gave birth to
Mother
it all.
Outlander.
She gave birth to it all, kind of. And as much as they say, like Scotland very much is a character in it. The colours and the visions and the weather all makes Outlander what it is as well. But obviously the referencing to the books, because every actor that goes into that show goes and studies the books. I mean, I remember flicking through the books looking for my character's name, to swat up. Obviously, they're going to be doing an adaptation of it. It'll be a lot shorter, but you still wanted to swap up, and that's the world. Diana created the world, and we get to go and have fun in it. It's incredible, So, and I was lucky enough in season 2 when I was there. Diana was on set, so it was nice to. And I've been when Diana's been in the country. I've been for meals with her. She's supported the various projects that I've been involved in after Outlander, and she's regularly tweeting. She tweeted about my play that I'm doing. So she sent out a wee good luck message for us with Singin I'm No Billy's a Tim as well. So that's nice to be part of the family on an ongoing basis. It was nice.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not just saying this. She's a prolific, amazing writer, and her attention to detail and also her imagery is really beautiful. I mean, in my opinion, she's one of the best writers right now of our time as far as this kind of historical fiction, or I guess it gets into fantasy, but it's so intelligent that it's really it's just great. I love it. But go on with you were going to mention you had gone on then and gone on to other projects, but as far as Outlander goes, how did you feel when your character came to its arc, where your character was ending in the show? I guess.
Well, the nice thing so Ross, who I played, still alive. It's just that they moved to America, and they moved through time.
Right.
So now the show is 20 years later. So my character is still in Lallybrook, still alive, which is important on these big shows, and it's very important when they start doing their spin-offs that I'm still alive. So if they do want a blacksmith, they can always bring Ross in. So that's nice.
Oh, good.
But I'm still alive, thankfully, to Diana, because
he didn't die in the Battle of Culloden.
No, this is so. What was happening was my following on social media became very, very large very quickly. So much so that I had the most following of all the Outlander stars, essentially, and
wow.
that was a wee bit of. I know from doing theatre for the years that if someone comes and sees a theatre show, and they spend their hard-earned cash. Yeah. After the show, I have a drink with them and I chat to them, and I find out a wee bit about them and where they've been and what made them come to the show. And essentially, I'm wanting to build a relationship because I'm hoping that they'll come and see the next show that I'm in as well. So I kind of treated Outlander a bit like I've treated the theatre shows I've been involved in, where you want to have a relationship with the audience. So when people would say on Twitter, Scott, can you wish me happy birthday? Or I followed you, Scott. Well, I would follow them back and I'd wish them happy birthday, and I would take a genuine, sincere interest in what's going on in their lives, because I'm a very people person. And at the time, a lot of the Outlander cast weren't doing that. So I was the only one that was really responding back to things and making videos for people. And if people were saying, I'm in Scotland, I'd say, well, come and we'll meet for a coffee. And people were going, I'm coming for a coffee. And then it got to the stage of like, I don't have time to have coffee with every Outlander fan that comes to Scotland. So we started doing a big Cayley night. And I says, well, if he's try and come around this time, and I'll invite some of the cast from Outlander along to the big nights. So that was the big kind of Outlander following. So from that, they started a Save Ross campaign, the fandom. So it was Save Ross, and it was great fun, because I knew that when you go into these TV shows, you're promised what you're promised and no more. What I learned from the contract situation. I was only contracted till when I was contracted, so I had no more than they promised me what they promised, and that was it. Nothing more, nothing less. And I got that. But I did know that I wasn't dead, so there's a chance I could be in Culloden and stuff. And Diana called me and she said, because I'd been penciled, they called me up and said, "Do you want season 3? You'll be in it." And then Diana called me and she had been privy to the script for it, and in the script, the character of Ross dies, but in previous episodes, Sam's character Jamie Fraser looks my character Ross in the eye and says, "I'll see you home safe," directly to me. And what Diana was saying is, Ross can't die because that means that Jamie's not a man of his word, and he told that guy he would be safe. So
there you have it.
So Diana said that. So if inevitably they changed the script so that
you were
my
saved
character,
by the
I
writer.
go home. Yeah, I go home. So I'm back at Lallybrook, and people say, so what would have happened is I'd have had one more episode at Culloden and I'd have died on screen. But because Diana saved me, what I would say to people is, would you want one guaranteed episode or the chance that you could come back? I would rather the chance that you could come back. So I was quite happy with my deal, to be honest. So yeah, I'm very grateful to Diana for saving Ross and the fandom for creating it, because I didn't see it as going to be a long-term role in the show, kind of beyond what I'd been promised. So to get the fan following and support, and the fans from the show have been amazing, and they've transitioned onto other projects with me. I've had fans from all over the world come to see me in the West End of London and stuff like that. It's been incredible.
What an incredible story. That sounds so amazing. So, and all of this happened because your play actually didn't continue. So then you were available for Outlander. So it's amazing how all these pieces kind of fell into place to make you available to do this other work. And then you went on. Yeah, to talk about the King's Speech producers and that production that you were in.
Well, that movie was a true story. It was called Kajaki, the true story. So in the US and Canada, it was called Kilo 2 Bravo. But in the UK, it was called Kajaki, which is the name of the area in Afghanistan where the events unfolded. So Kajaki is a true story of a bunch of British paratroopers who were stationed on Kajaki Dam in Afghanistan, and one day they find themselves trapped in an old minefield. So they can't move because they've stumbled into a minefield that wasn't on the map, so they didn't know, and they didn't know until people started getting blown up that they're in a minefield. Now, this is a true story, so you were representing real people on the screen, so it was a very different pressure to anything else you had done, because there was going to be someone at home watching that, and you were representing their journey and their life on screen. So it was phenomenal. The nice thing was, you were working with Academy Award-winning producers, so you had no worries about the standard of everyone else. You were only worried about your own standard of going, I hope I can cut it at this level, because this is the best available actors to portray these soldiers. So, I remember Stu Pearson, who I played in the movie, he did a TV advert and they said, "Who do you want to play you?" And he said, "Brad Pitt." I like to tell the story that Brad Pitt couldn't master the Glaswegian accent, so that's why he didn't get the part. I think it was more to do, he was doing Fury at the time, the war movie he was doing. But yeah, so that was a true story. And I play Stu Pearson. So Stu stood on the second landmine in the movie, and obviously in real life. And unfortunately, in the events that took place, Corporal Mark Wright lost his life that day. And his life was portrayed on screen by David Elliott. And David won the Scottish BAFTA for that portrayal, which was just fantastic, just incredible. But it was we filmed it in Jordan for 6 weeks. So we're in the desert. All right, we had a 5-star hotel to go back to at the end of the day, which the real soldiers kept reminding us they didn't have that. So when some of you chat about politics, on-set politics, some of the actors were more delicate than others, let's say. So they would maybe get upset if there wasn't ice cold water, or if there wasn't an umbrella to shade them from the sun, which was burning you 12 hours a day. But the paratroopers took great pleasure in telling us, and the military advisors saying, we didn't have a 5-star hotel, we didn't have ice water, and we didn't have umbrellas. And we were here for longer than 6 weeks. So after that, there was less moaning from the cast about how warm it was, or how the water wasn't cold. But yeah, an incredible story. And the incredible story as well was the guys were lifted out of the minefield by the Americans. It was the Americans that came to the rescue. There was a whole court case about the movie, and that's why it was quite difficult to get it made. the helicopter that was requested to rescue the men when they'd stood on a landmine, lost limbs, was a winch helicopter to lift them out because it was a minefield. They wanted to winch them out. The British military at the time didn't have any winch helicopters. Apparently, the winches had been taken off to save on the fuel, so they didn't have winch helicopters available. So the military, the UK military, had to ask the Americans for a favour to come and rescue the guys. Unfortunately, the Americans there was multiple attacks that day. It's called the Day of Days. There was multiple simultaneous attacks happened that day, and the only asset available was a Chinook helicopter. And if you're in a minefield with live mines, you don't want a Chinook trying to land nearby you because the down blast from that is significant. And that's exactly what happened. The down blast from the Chinook moved a rock which blew up, and it blew up Corporal Mark Wright, and he was damaged in his chest, and he got wounds that were so severe that he passed away. So that's the true story of Kajaki, and it was an incredible journey. The Academy Award was on set when we were there, so the standards were very clear that this is the standard. And it was just an incredible movie. But the audition process for that, I went down to London 3 times, and they asked me, how do you think you would feel if you were standing in a minefield and one of your best friends has lost his leg? And I said, well, I've never been in that situation. I can't even begin to imagine what the feelings would be. I said, but I have played football or soccer my whole life, and I have seen when the goalkeeper's knees back to front because he's injured himself, and I know the effect it's going to have on his family and his work life and all the other things because I'm a keen amateur footballer. So I said I kind of gave them that reference, and obviously my audition got me the part. But that was just to go. The funny thing with that is with Outlander and even with the Angel's Share, the other movie that I'd done, you're really keen that the critics like it because you know that'll be detrimental or imperative to the success of the movie. On Kajaki, the only person for me initially that I was interested in enjoying the performance was Stu, who I played. I wanted him to sit and feel that he was represented on screen in the right way, that he felt that's how he survived that situation. After that, it was a responsibility to the men that were in the minefield that day. You wanted them to be happy, and then after that it was the British military, and then the US military, and then it was maybe like the audiences, and eventually the critics. So it was kind of back to front. The way you looked at the movie, you were wanting, if the critics thought it was great, but the person you were portraying on screen said that's not my story, then we would have failed. And thankfully, all the guys that were there that day said it's 99.9%. Like you'd had to have been there to get it any closer. Which is
good. That's quite an endorsement. That's great.
So, yeah, absolutely.
That must have made you feel good as an actor too, because it is, and you don't have to be blind to act or have empathy with blindness, right? Like I mean, the whole thing about Stanislavski method or some of the other methods is you reach in and you use comparable experiences, because we all experience, the realms of grief, fear, anger, all of that, right? So
yeah. And I think as well that the thing that the military guys have got a really dark humour, and the banter's fantastic between the guys. So one of the nice things I was able to do when we first met our guy that we were going to be playing, it was like a first date. The military guys are looking, who did you get, right? And we're looking to see our guy. So when I met Stu, I had a bit of a joke. Well, he didn't know I was joking at the time, but I said to him, Stu, now I'm an award-winning actor. Okay, I've won awards for acting. So if you come and see the movie and you think that you're awful, right? It's really bad. It's not that I'm a bad actor. It's that you're a bad paratrooper. All right. So I think that right away, awesome. I think it went. I like you, Scott. I like you. You got me laughing. So we shared a beer that night and we shared the stories, and that was a big thing. It was giving you an insight not just into what happened, which was physically it altered his physicality. He's got a prosthetic leg every morning when he wakes up. He's got a daily reminder of what happened there every time he looks down. But also it was emotionally, he was opening up to all the fears and the hopes and dreams that he thought he'd lost when he was lying bleeding to death in a minefield. So to sit in someone's house and And he also lost his best friend. His best friend, Corporal Mark Wright, died in the incident. So it was to sit in someone's house and them to open up to you was an incredible experience as another human being. Was just an incredible insight. You know, it was a door it was a doorway that you had no right getting an insight into, but part of your job meant that you kind of had to know things to be able to honour them in the right way on the screen. So fantastic.
You know, I wanted to ask you another thing with acting, you know, because you are international, actually. Have you had the opportunity to do an American accent or English or Irish or whatever, or any other accent for that matter?
I've done lots of accents. Most of it's on the stage, thankfully. So there's no video evidence.
That's
so,
it has to be good if you're on the stage
yeah.
with it.
Well, you're on the stage, so it's the nice thing is it's left on the stage that night with the ghosts of past. But yeah, I did a lot of theatre. I worked in Romeo and Juliet in Milan. I've worked in Finland.
Wow.
That was fantastic. Went to the Piccolo Theatre in Milan for 6 weeks doing Romeo and Juliet. It was a bilingual production because the pentameter, the rhythm of the pentameter doesn't work in Italian, so that had to be done in English, or in my case, Scottish. But Mercutio and other members of the cast were Italian, so they're speaking to an audience in Italian. I have no idea what they're saying, and I'm waiting on a noise. You get your cue line in acting. You're waiting on your cue line, which is the line the person says before you have to speak. Well, I was waiting on a noise. I'm waiting on him saying a noise that he makes, and then I know to speak. So yeah, I've done things like that, and I've done different accents on stage. The thing, you might be familiar with this, with the kind of the TV and the movie industry, we'd all love to think that someone's going to take a punt on us and will be given a Captain Jack Sparrow role, right? Or an Edward Scissorhands, right? Because I think everybody's capable of so much. You know, so many talented people can do so many things. But those roles are few and far between, and they're a big gamble for the producers. So what tends to happen is if you do a good job as something. So my first movie role professionally was Angel's Share, and it was playing a kind of antagonistic bully from Scotland in Glasgow, a gang member. So I did that, and then I got cast as Stu. So obviously Stu's in the army, so the army's a bigger gang, isn't it, than the street gang? They're a big organised gang, you know, the military. So there's a different kind of feeling to it, as they're all young males that are at fighting age. So there's similarities there. And then in Outlander, I played Ross, so that was neutralising my Glasgow accent to just Scottish. And but Ross, what I liked about Ross was Ross didn't want to be in a gang. He wasn't interested in being part of the fighting. He was just a craftsman, a blacksmith that kind of got sucked in like a wee ball of fluff into what was going on. Because if you didn't go and fight, they would throw you off your land, because it was your landlord that was telling you had to go and fight. So for the sake of your wife and kids, you had to go fight. And I like the contrast of a lot of the stuff I'd played on camera before was the big, brave, macho, not scared of anything, soldier or the thug. And I like the idea of playing the craftsman that had nothing to gain from going to that war. Nothing to gain. All he'd be doing is coming back and farming his land again. So he had nothing to gain, but everything to lose. And that was nice. But getting to my point is, I seen it was Ryan Gosling, and he said, you sometimes get in a lane, and it's a lane that you're really good at and you're really strong at. And it's hard to get out of that lane because people think of you for the stuff that's in that lane. So to jump lanes can be a wee bit more challenging. So you're kind of needing someone to take that leap of faith on you, because they can watch your stuff you've done in Glaswegian or Scottish, but they haven't seen you in a big movie doing a Russian accent or doing a German accent or doing something different. So sometimes you can do enough on stage that when you go into the auditions, you're really, really good. But yeah, it's a craft itself that you have to work on all the time.
It's wonderful. I love hearing your journey about the different roles that you've been able to get and work through. I wanted to ask you about Scotland itself and just where we are right now. A little geopolitical question, because I think Americans particularly are pretty out of touch with what's happening sometimes in Europe internally. But there's a lot of economic crisis in Ireland. There's a housing crisis. Mm-hmm. A lot of my Irish friends are telling me, how bad it is. And then in England, of course, in Great Britain, they just had an article that several thousand businesses are going to be shutting down due to the economy. And there's been such a focus on war and money going to defense. But for Scotland, I just had a question about the independence. And if you're not comfortable giving your opinion, that's fine. But I wanted to know what Scottish people in general are feeling about, because it came close. The last vote I heard of Scotland getting its independence. Do they want it? Do they not? What is the downside of that?
I suppose the answer there is it depends who you ask, because it was a very close. I think it was 55 to 45, so it was a very close thing.
10 points.
The worrying thing for me is I once served in jury duty, right? And when the first lawyer spoke, I thought, okay, guilty. He knows what he's talking about. And then the next lawyer spoke and went, oh no, not guilty. And the whole way through, I don't know anything about the law, so I'm a novice in the law. So watching these craftsmen, these masters of the law, trying to persuade me, little me who knows nothing, to vote one way or the other was a bit daunting and overwhelming. I understood my responsibility and I fulfilled it. But I look at the independence as very similar in terms of, throughout history, Scotland has been looking for its independence and fighting for its independence. There's an aspect of that as a Scotsman that, yeah, you want your independence. The flip side of that as well is that I don't know enough in terms of economically. I've heard arguments on the TV that Scotland couldn't survive on its own, yada yada. And then there's other sides that say, well, Scotland's got oil and rich in resources, so we could survive, and it's the rest of the UK that struggle. And the honest answer, Tara, is I don't know enough. It's very hard, and I'm sure everybody in Scotland, there might be some people that they set up their camp as, I want independence and that's it. And there's other people that would go, I don't want independence, that's it. I definitely think if you're trying to look at the argument, it's a very, very muddy area.
It is. It's hard to follow.
Yeah, that's it. And you've got to be careful whose advice you buy. Do you know what I mean? Like, you've got to be, where are we getting our news sources from? Is it in our best interests? All these other things that we know now we've seen from the narrative can be on TV one thing, and then you may be getting reports from an area online and it's a different story. So it's very difficult to know how do you make an informed decision on your future if you're not informed.
Exactly. Yeah, you have to do some research. You have to do some work, right?
And I think it's very difficult. The temptation as well, that the horrible thing can be in life is that when times are tough, people tend to think of themselves first, which I understand completely. And they don't think of the collective, because it's hard. If you're struggling, you can only see what's going on in your world, in your community, in your household, and you don't see the bigger picture, and that can be very difficult. And I find that a lot with, I'm fortunate enough, I've travelled the whole world. I've been in communities all over the world. I've been blessed to be hosted in households all over the world, and I see myself as a citizen of the planet, and I'm very proud to be to walk into anywhere and be a proud member of the planet. So my what I'm also proud Scottish. I love wearing my kilts. I went on a podcast the other night and the guys were wearing kilts because they say, we see you in a kilt everywhere you go. So I'm very proud of my history and my heritage, but not so much that I want it to be to the detriment of anyone else.
Oh, there you have it.
That makes sense.
That's a good way to put it. I like that. That's a very good way to put it.
So yeah, and I worry about, as I say, lines on a map. The joke I made at the start is, there wasn't a Belgian or a Russian and Ukrainian dinosaur. They all lived on the planet. The lines were made by someone drawn on a map, right. and then the rest of us buying into that idea. So there's a lot of things you were mentioning there, maybe island stuff. There's a lot of things about immigrants and stuff. I don't know enough, but what I would say is that an immigrant's just a person that used to be somewhere else. It's just a person that used to be somewhere else. So a wee bit when I watch the TV, if maybe it's people travelling on boats to get across the water, and they'll maybe say immigrants died today, and I've always got a wee bit of bother of going, it was human beings.
Yeah.
They had family that loved them as well. They breathed oxygen, they drank water, they ate food, the exact same as us. And I'm sure if we were in their shoes, we would be maybe doing the same decisions as them. So,
well, I'm an American and I'm here in Russia. I'm under political asylum. I had to flee. So,
which is incredible, that's
we all have our stories, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that old saying of "there by the grace of God go I." So
it
was Billy Connolly said
make it work, but I think what's fascinating about your story is it's like very much a hero's journey how you had this beautiful play and this thing with these themes that we're just talking about, and then lose it, and then actually great opportunities come your way, and then you win it back. And I think that's a wonderful hero's journey. And I was wondering, just to kind of close off, could you talk a little bit about where the play is going and where you're going from here, and how people can find you on social media if they want to ask you more questions?
Okay, so while I remember, people can find me on my website, which is www.scottkyle.co.uk. I'm on Twitter, and that's Scott J Kyle #1. And I'm on kind of Facebook, but I think I've maxed out my friends there. So that, if anybody wants to find out, that's how they can find out a wee bit about me. I put me into Google and everything comes up. In terms of the play, we're touring the whole UK for the next 2 years. It's the 20-year anniversary of the show in 2025, but some theatres wanted it early because they're closed maybe in 2020. So we've ended up doing a 2029 tour as well, a 2024 tour, which we hadn't planned. So it's starting a bit earlier than we thought. So we open in London in May for 2 weeks, and then we go to the Edinburgh Festival in August. So we're going back to defend my title as the best actor. I'm only joking. But it's nice to go back to the festival where it all started. And then we tour the whole UK. So we're going to Republic of Ireland, Northern Ireland, England, Wales, and Scotland, and hopefully internationally. But getting the play back was a huge thing. I met with a writer. So how it came about was my kind of day job is I programme shows all over the country. So I book shows into the theatres because of my background as a theatre performer and a producer, producing shows. So I was trying to book the show, and the writer had said to me, look, no one's producing it anymore. Would you like it back? And there was a bit of trauma there. It was like childhood trauma of going, do I want to open that door again that I'd closed that hurt me so badly? And I spoke up through with my wife, Karen, and the kind of deciding factor was, one, someone's going to tour it. Why not me? I found it in the library that day. I had the movie story of finding the play and losing the play and maybe getting it back. And the other thing was my book. I'm really keen to promote my book, and where better to tell the story of losing the play and getting the play back than after the show. And you can do a signed copy of it in the bar after the show to the audience. So those were kind of deciding factors of it. And the other thing was, if we were going to do it, I wanted to do it with the original cast. I didn't want to go with a new team. So I had to contact the guys that hadn't done the show for 13 years and says, you want to get the tops out? And we'll go and do the show again. And we're all a bit older and a bit wiser, but we're really excited about it. We had a wee Zoom chat last night, and we bashed through the show online, and it's brilliant. I was laughing. I'm in the show and I'm laughing at the other actors, what they're doing, because they're so brilliant. As I say, bear in mind, we've been doing it for 5 years. We've had a 13-year break, but a lot of it's still there. The muscle memory, the timing, the storytelling, the jokes. It's just wonderful. So, and I'm excited to finish the book with hopefully the play goes on to maybe tour the world. That would be a nice ending to the book.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll look for the book, and definitely I will post it and have you back on. And you're welcome to read a bit of it. I just want to thank you, because we've talked offline. I just feel like we've connected several times throughout the years. We followed each other for a couple of years now, and now that I've talked with you about this whole thing about the play, I'm just so fascinated to see it. Under political asylum, I cannot leave Russia right now, but I'm hoping my lawyers are trying to get the Interpol arrest warrants dropped, and it sounds worse than what it is. We'll talk about it later, but those are dropped, and we're trying to figure out what the FBI DOJ thing is doing. And so if I can travel, I would love to go to Edinburgh. I've always wanted to go to that festival and watch. So
I have faith.
I'll make that my goal. Hopefully I'll have my own freedom and be able to move about the world soon.
There must have been a reason why we've connected, so I've no doubt that you will come and see the show at some point. I have every faith.
I shall, or bring it to Moscow. That's another.
There you are. If we can get a theatre, we'll be there. It'll be part of the peace process, maybe, because that's what the show is. It's an allegory for the peace processes all over the world. That's what the show is. So if two people can put their divides aside for the greater
peace
good,
is good.
there you are. So a nice way to end. Wonderful.
Peace. And let's hope that 2024 can bring more peace and less war. I really hope so. And, it's been delightful to have you. And to those in our audience, go ahead. You can look under the description of YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, all the different platforms we are, and you can contact Scott, find out more about him, and follow his journey, his hero's journey as it continues. Thank you for joining us. Take care. Peace out. Okay, so